Oh boy, I can't wait to play my new Lagomos Hand of Hatred deck that I built. It's pretty casual, no fast mana, no combos, outside of Soul Ring of course. Hey, is that Butcher of Malakir? What is this, CDH? Reanimation? How can we beat that? It doesn't even die to Doomblade. You need to change your deck. All of us just can't compete. For a while now, I have seen a ton of discussion online about people in different playgroups getting asked to change their deck. And this dramatized retelling of a Reddit post I found recently, I think exemplifies a real problem Commander players have. In this post, a player explains how their Lagomos deck was deemed too powerful for their playgroup. First off, I want to clarify, this deck is really sweet. It looks like a super fun Aristocrats deck with lots of interesting utility. So what's the issue? Apparently, Butcher of Malakir, not Grave Pact, not Dictate of Erebos, Butcher of Malakir, the weakest of those effects by far. And in the post, this player complains that other people use precons that have the card in it. And the only difference is that their deck can reanimate the Butcher if need be. So they're able to play it 2 or 3 times in a game, assuming their commander doesn't die, and it doesn't get exiled, and their graveyard never gets hit. And they have the extra fodder to sacrifice for Lagomos to trigger. And I can see why this player is frustrated that their playgroup doing a 3v1 can't seem to beat one Butcher of Malakir? How is it that this deck that is basically precon level is able to just be unbeatable? And is it fair to ask this player to change their deck? So I want to be clear that if someone is playing a much higher deck at the table, it's totally okay to say, hey, we're all using unupgraded precon decks, maybe tone it down a bit. That's perfectly reasonable. If you want to learn more about that, check out my How to Beat a Pub Stomper video here. But I think when people build fair, interesting decks, they should be allowed to play it. I see so many posts on Reddit about how they're worried that their deck is too strong, or, oh, when is it okay to win a game, yada yada yada. And I know websites like Twitter and Reddit all lean towards posting negative experiences because if I posted, I went to my LGS and nothing eventful happened, it seems like a pretty pointless post. So I'm sort of looking at the worst of it. But I think people just need to suck it up and build better decks. And I don't mean fast mana, I don't mean tutors, I don't mean dropping $1,000 on your deck. Literally just more removal, more card draw, more graveyard hate, more interaction. Players will unironically look me dead in the eyes and say, take Ensnaring Bridge out of your deck so I can win more easily against you, instead of playing Disenchant. I think this is incredibly ridiculous. Like, how is there not a single piece of artifact removal among 3 players? And complaining about other people's decks does kind of ruin the experience for players. It's just not fun when the game ends in a ton of salt and someone telling off another player, and that's kind of the point. Like, I feel like the saltiness does affect players and is frustrating. Be the change you want to see in EDH. If you're the player making posts like this, or just thinking to yourself, wow, their deck was so strong, I felt like I could do nothing, they need to change their deck. They need to take apart this deck. Ultimately, you can't control what your opponent does, but you can control your deck and what you do. To some extent, your fun is in your own hands. So with that said, that's enough complaining about complainers. Let's talk some practical budget solutions. Okay, let's say you're playing a precon. Cool, what are some adjustments you can make? Most precon decks do not have enough removal, do not have enough card draw, do not have enough graveyard hate. So you're gonna need more of all of those things. For your graveyard hate, you can easily slot in something like Soul Guide Lantern into most decks. It draws a card if you don't need it, and it's just really efficient. If you need artifact or enchantment removal, Disenchant always works. Creeping Corrosion is a great way to hose artifact decks, and can be really great if your green deck is focused on putting lands into play so you don't lose any mana rocks. Cards like Doomscar and Phasing of Zhalfir are both great budget board wipes you can use. Wild Magic Surge and Bedevil are pretty decent budget spot removal spells, and a ton of people sleep on the charms. Rakdos Charm removes artifacts plus can exile graveyards, and sometimes, if your opponent has infinite creatures in play with some combo, you can just knock them out of the game. Abzan Charm is a must-have for any counters deck in the colors. Removal plus card draw, and it puts counters on things. It's so good. And there are a ton more great budget removal, board wipes, card draw, graveyard hate. Really every bit of interaction you could possibly need. You don't need to play the most optimal version of everything, especially in casual Commander. The cheap $1 version works just as well. You need to choose to put it in your deck. So next time you sit down at Commander and you felt like the game did not go your way, it felt like you couldn't do anything, all of your opponents seemed to be doing more, or they had stuff you couldn't beat, think about how you could solve that puzzle. How could you get around it? What could you have done to beat it? What could be in your deck to destroy that? And maybe try finding a solution there before asking them to change their deck. Because it does really feel bad if you spend time building a deck and your whole playgroup yells at you for doing so. Thank you so very much for watching. If you don't agree with me that players need to improve their decks instead of asking others to change, then why? Let me know. I'm curious. And if you have any other suggestions for budget interaction, let me know in the comments below. There's tons of great options and I'd love to see more. Subscribe for more.